All right. Let me know if you can hear me okay, chat. Got a little fuzzball here. Oh, let me know if you can hear me all right. I got a slightly new setup. We're going to see if it works okay. So far showing no dropped frames on Twitch. Is everyone else seeing the same? No dropped frames? Sounds good. First off, hey everybody, hope you're well. I see a lot of familiar faces in chat, so appreciate that. We got VMXEO, Mookins, Citizen Ninja, Rabbit, Zero, all kinds of people hanging out today. Appreciate it. Easy the Goon. Sorry if I missed any names. I just did a quick read through the ones I could see. Oh, there's Bingo. See Bingo. It's been a while since we've chatted, Bingo. I hope you're doing well. First off, a couple top of show announcements. What is that little weird thing on my chat? Okay, my chat window is all. I wish they would fade the edges out of them. But anyway, a couple things. I do, or I guess I should say, I am looking for an additional channel moderator or two. If you have an interest, feel free to DM me on Discord. If I'll go ahead and tell you now, I don't know when I'm going to start that. It's going to, it might be a week, it might be 2 weeks before I get in contact with you. But if you want to message me and at least say, hey, I'm interested in being a channel moderator, please do. Some of you may already be monitors or moderators, sorry. VMXEO, I know you are a channel moderator, but there may be some of you that have an interest, and if you do, get in contact with me. It may just be something where I say, "Hey, appreciate it. I'll get back to you." But I wanna do some better channel moderation on this side for some additional communication, link moderation, kind of making that something that can happen, and a few other things. And then maybe just help me kind of keep things running to some degree with my Grim streams, right? So John Shaves on YouTube says, hey Grim, any update on that new site you announced a little while ago? Are you talking about the org site? Because the org site is currently being built, is about 70% complete. All the org stuff is finished, by the way. It's ready to announce. I just wanted to get the website finished, so it's close. It's like 70, 80% done. Is that the channel you were thinking? Let's see here. Artemis says, did you end up designing an Anvil Corvette Capital? No, that's going to come soon, though. I'm already sort of planning that. I'm going to make some kit bashing announcements here in just a minute. I'll do it now. For those of you that enjoy the kit bashing, you'll remember we did the Argo Capital ship in the past, which I do want to finish. We got off of that because my summer travel stuff started, and the summer travel stuff really sort of took me out of circulation to some degree. Most of you know I went to Quantum Vegas and some other things, so I do want to get back to that. But about the new Fleet Viewer website, you might be talking about Fleet Command. Fleet Command is still definitely in development phase. A lot of it's still the planning. And I'll go into why on that in just a second. But on the kit bashing stuff, there's two things I want to do. I do want to do an Anvil Capital ship. That is something I want to plan, that particular stream. And then the other one is me and VMXEO, who's in chat. We are going to do a versus stream where both the screen is split, and on one side will be me, on one side will be VMXEO, and we'll have the same assignment, and we'll both tackle it. It won't be like a competition, really, because I think we'll both come at it wildly different, but it will be just a fun, interesting show that no one else is doing, which, as you all know, I much prefer making content that no one else is really doing. And it'll just be a fun exercise. You know what I mean? Maybe we'll get some CIG folks watching or something. I'll shoot a message to maybe like to Ben Curtis or something, and You never know. Maybe some of the ship team members will watch and laugh at us as we try to build ships. um, but those are two things being planned. I think on the versus kind of the me and VMXEO kit bash thing, I think that is really ready to go. I have all the show graphics for it done, all the promotional material done. I really just got to get with VM, and we got to decide two things. We got to decide on what our first episode is, or what our first project is going to be, because it could expand multiple episodes. What our first project is going to be, and when is a good time for him to do it, and we will organize a time for that. I think VMXEO already had a concept idea that we could do. We might start with a very large ground vehicle, like something in like the large ship category, but a ground vehicle. Think like think 40, 50, 60 meters long, maybe something like that. I still think an interesting idea would be a vehicle that's got kind of a flatbed on it, that's a landing pad that you can land ships on, like medium ships, and then that vehicle with the flatbed can move them around. It would be pretty interesting for base logistics and stuff. I don't know. I got ideas. And a big tractor beam on it to move that ship off the flatbed and set it down on like a predefined landing pad or something. I could see that for people with doing base logistics and stuff. Got my STARJUMP mug here, everybody. But yes, we got a few. We are going to do this. It's something we are planning. We are working on it. I think we both really want it to happen. So, that being said, Fleet Command. Let me talk about that real quick. Why is Fleet Command so tricky? Yeah, ground-based Liberator. Exactly. Why is Fleet Command so tricky from a concept standpoint? I'll go ahead and explain it real quick here before we dive into today's topic, which is all about the medical gameplay going on right now. And that does relate to Shipyard, by the way, because the ships are a way, or one of the ways that we access that gameplay through the Apollo that's just coming out and more. But real quick on Fleet Command. So the entire idea of Fleet Command is to give you a bird's eye view understanding of your fleet strength and your fleet weaknesses. And when I say fleet, you can assign any scale you want there, from a small squadron or to 2 ships, all the way to an entire org fleet, right? So what is the fleet strength? Okay. Now, to do that, each ship has to have a think of it as a score assigned to it, right? A ship score, which is what we call it in Fleet Command. That ship score is a number associated with that ship that gives it a certain strength level. But the tricky part about that is that strength is different across different gameplay loops, right? So a ship may be strong in combat, weak in salvage, because it doesn't do any salvage, it's just a combat ship, right? There may be a salvage ship that's got a very high salvage score, but really terrible at combat, all the way 0 at mining because it's a salvage ship. So how do you balance those numbers to come up with an overall generalized ship score? And then you extrapolate that across the different scales of ship. Just because a ship is bigger doesn't mean it's better from a ship score standpoint, right? So there's a lot of factoring going into that. And then last but not least, a lot of the flight-ready ships we have solid metrics on. We can better assign a ship score to. The concept ships are a lot more difficult because there's so much that's still unoutlined about them. With that being said, there is a way around that where it is something I'm working on. I'm deep in Excel spreadsheet zone. The idea, though, is that you are going to be able to, if you have an org fleet, and let's say that org fleet is separated into your Stanton fleet, your Pyro fleet, your whatever, Industrial Fleet 1, Salvage Fleet 2, but it's all under one org banner, you're going to be able to see the various fleet, overall score strength of each one of those, and then move ships and people and personnel around to better organize them and stuff. Again, it goes much deeper, but I wanted to explain a little bit why it's kind of a complicated tool concept, because it does deal with like what I call STARJUMP meta, which is stuff we have to create, numbers we have to create and associate with ships. And by the way, not everyone's going to like that. Some people are going to have different ideas of how it be done. For those people, I would encourage you to make your own tool. So yeah. By the way, anyone interested in projects like that, get a hold of me. But all right, today we are. By the way, you may get a little bit of based grim today. I'm in a little bit of a mood today. Sorry. So. That may happen. I'm in a little bit of a mood today, so you may get some based grim action. Payne and hey, good morning. Everyone in chat, by the way, good morning. Really appreciate you all coming by, hanging out for a bit. Great turnout. Real quick to all my Twitch watchers. I'm hoping the experience is much better for you today. I'm showing 0 drop frame loss. I had to do a bunch of behind the scenes fixing. If you remember my last stream, I was getting constant Twitch restarts. I think I've solved the issue. Hopefully you have a better time at it today and it's not as, as many hang-ups and glitches and stuff. So I did that work on you. YouTube, you should also get those benefits as well because I did the work to both. So Rasmus Bernhard asks a great question here saying, will you make a base viewer when base building comes out? Well, VMXEO is in chat here with me, and I think me and VMXEO both absolutely want base building to come to Fleet Viewer when base building parts and pieces come to the verse, or come into the game files. And the way we want to do that, or the way I envision it happening, is to help orgs plan out their bases. So with that, what I would like to do is when you go into the base building side of Fleet Viewer, I would like there to be the components rendered out from a top-down viewpoint, or at the very least a top-down viewpoint. Maybe there would be others, but at least a top view down point. Stakar Ogord, thank you very much for the follow. Appreciate it. Hope I said that right. Thank you for that subscription. I really appreciate your support, by the way. It goes a long way. But top-down view, you have all the modules. So habitation, medical, refinery, roads, platform, all that. And you can take those top-down pieces and start moving them together like Legos to sort of get a good top-down view of your base plan, right? And then when you have that base plan, you can share that with your org, and then that way other people working on that org base with you can sort of be on the same game plan, set buildings where you want them to be, and all that kind of good stuff. CIG may come out with something like that. I hope they do, but we'll see. We'll see. Yes, exactly, Rabbit. And we'll just have to see what that information ends up being. So, okay, everyone, we're going to swing over here and talk about medical gameplay. Okay, we're going to go ahead and get into it. Real quick, I'm sorry, I do have one more announcement. Piggles, Sir Piggles, some of you know him. VMXEO, I know you know him. I've been working with Piggles for a little bit here. He is working on a bot that will allow me to pull questions automatically from Twitch and YouTube at the same time and populate those into a Discord channel for me to view and go through. We're going to do, you've seen this bot on Info Runners and I think Astro Historian Paul Shelley's podcast, the Astropub. We're going to have it here too. He's working on some updates to it to make it run a little better. I think on Thursday night, I'm going to do a Q&A show where it's a STARJUMP Ask Me Anything show. And we're going to have the bot running. Piggles might be in the chat watching, keeping track on how the bot's working. And we're going to test the bot and we'll see how it works. And when you have questions, you'll be able to type question and, it'll populate for me, okay? And we'll be able to do a nice AMA. Piggles is an awesome dude, by the way. Great dude, especially on the modding side of things. And he spawned the Kraken one time, which was the highlight of my year one year. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and get into it. Let's see here. Hudson Hawk says, will you update the picture star citizen ship size comparison chart with the ships? Yeah, any of the new ships. I need to do an update on it. I will do that. I'll try to do that this week. Ships like the Apollo are already in there, but ships like the Wolf need to be added. I think in the Meteor, I think Wolf and Meteor I need to get into that chart, but otherwise we're caught up. And then obviously it's a yearly task. Now, it's about a once a quarter task for me, VM. It's about a once a quarter task. The only thing I will say, and obviously there's some patience involved in this because VMXEO and chat, everyone give VMXEO a nice big salute. If you enjoy StarJump Fleet Viewer, he's a big reason why it exists. But once the Apollos come out, VM will do nice new renders of the Apollo Medevac, the Apollo Triage, so that those can be represented in Fleet Viewer more accurately than they currently are. Personally, I'm really excited for the Perseus model to come into the game file so that VMXEO can do a new render of the Perseus. The Perseus model we have in Fleet Viewer, I've always been unhappy with it. It's pretty terrible as it is because it's based off the Holo model. So, okay, everybody, we're going to get into it. We're talking medical gameplay. We're going to go ahead and switch over. CIG posted 2 great articles on their website. Again, I love that they're doing this. I want them to do it more. I'd like them to do it with, I mean, they do it with systems as they're updating them, but I would love for them to put out new design brief articles on the regular. To be quite honest with you, especially it'd be great to get one on engineering soon, although I'm sure we'll get it when it does come back into the game patches. So, Ruzi, we're going to get into that now. So first, we're going to start with the design brief medical gameplay, okay? We're just going to go through this together, and if you have any questions on it, hit me, put questions in bracket. I'll try to grab them if I see them, obviously. By the way, we got a great turnout today, 31 over on Twitch and 101 on YouTube. Definitely trying to build both audiences. If you have friends that are into Star Citizen but they don't watch, make sure you share the channels with them, share this community with them. I'd really appreciate it. But anyways, the first thing here is it says, it kind of goes into the medical gameplay stuff here, and it has information on the 3 different tier injuries. Now, if you remember, we have 3 different medical tier beds, and that kind of mirrors number-wise the injury tiers, right? And I think this is based off triage, right? If there's any medics or medical people in chat, you might be able to correct me, but I believe the tier 1, 2, and 3 are based off triage numbers. I thought there was a tier 4 in triage, though, like real life triage stuff, but maybe I'm wrong. But let's go over minor injuries real quick here. Minor injuries are the lowest level of injury, decreases your maximum health pool and introduces several gameplay effects depending on where you were injured. A minor T3 injury to those areas will have the following effects. If your arm is hit, your weapons will be harder to aim, etc. Legs, movement speed will be diminished. All pretty common sense stuff, right? Torso is a reduction in overall stamina and regen. You get some audible actor status sort of effects. Destroy, hope you're well. Enjoy your grocery run. And if you get hit in the head, you'll have blurred vision, muffled audio, some of that chromatic aberration effect that CIG puts in and stuff. These can be healed on site with the med gun stuff, and can be healed to completion. So you can be healed up to 100%. I'm sure if any of you were doing the Onyx facilities, ASD facilities, or just out there doing random everyday stuff in the verse, you've had these moments where those injuries occur, and you have to kind of top yourself off, right? So if you're carrying a med pen or one of the med guns or whatever, you hit B and you do yourself a quick injection to get yourself back up and running. Yes, I did, Bunker. I have those up, and we're going to go through them once we go through these changes. Thank you, though. Tier 2, these are moderate injuries. Obviously, these incur all the same penalties and effects as the minor ones, but are expanded with more pronounced effects and a few new additions. So, for example, this time you get hit in the arms, you're going to have a more severe impact to things like aiming, gun stabilization, stuff like that. Limit your ability to throw items, which is kind of cool. Legs increase the severity of all your movements as well, and you'll have additional animation effects such as limping and things like that. Torso, it says here, severe existing impairments, so all the stuff from tier 3, but just amped up with coughing up blood mechanics, which is so insane. But yes, there it is. And then head, increased severity of existing impairments. So actually, this is essentially tier 3, but just with enhanced effects. It says here, moderate injuries can have their symptoms stabilized by on-site treatment or a medical bed of any size, but require tier 2 unit or better to heal. So what does that mean? So if you have a tier 2 injury, and here's what is tricky about the way CIG names this. Part of me wishes that the tier injuries were called something different than the tiered medical beds, because there's a little bit of confusion there. But essentially what it means is if you get a tier 2 injury, you can stabilize yourself with almost everything, right? The tier 3 medical beds, the med pen, the med gun, all that stuff. But you're going to need a tier 2 medical bed to get fully better, right? To be fully healed up. Although maybe that's not a confusion because then you just associate tier 2 to tier 2, tier 3 to tier 3. But essentially, with that tier 2 injury, you're going to have to get to a tier 2 bed to get fully topped off again, right? Otherwise, you'll be operating at a level that is under 100%, even if you are stabilized, right? So important to know. You've probably seen this out in the verse if you've ever done something, got injured, try to top off, and you only can heal to like 70% or 90% or whatever. You know what I mean? Jaybird says it really well here. Whether this is perfect yet or not, because obviously there's still a lot more medical that has to come, we're starting to see that medical gameplay come in some more interesting ways. And I know a lot of this stuff existed, but CIG is starting to formalize it a little bit more, especially with these design documents being put out. And what I hope is that starts to give us a clearer picture of where we are headed and where CIG is headed in terms of injury and, gameplay moving forward. Because remember, the gameplay is going to be affected by how detrimental injuries and healing are, how much friction those two gameplay mechanics have is going to directly go into the type of gameplay CIG puts us together. For example, those sort of like horde battles are going to get very, very difficult with a medical system like this, unless CIG counters that with appropriate heavy armors to up our survival time in those situations, which is what they're doing, by the way. I'm saying if CIG, but that's where they're going with it. But it's a balance. You have to have deep medical with wide-ranging gameplay. So those are your two sort of things that play off each other. But then you need those things in between, such as on-site stabilization, armor, armor classes, so heavy armors and stuff like that, industrial armors that can maybe protect you from non-combat injuries. But then you also need other stuff like, other effectors in there would be things like if you're a player and you've worked up a medical skill, right, to where you're maybe considered a medic or a doctor or whatever, working up some sort of skill tree, which I'm a firm believer that Star Citizens should have some skill trees. I know some people don't agree with that, but I do. This is a game, by the way, not real life. There needs to be some system that you can build your character, right? Some sort of stuff in there that you can build up that, again, makes you an effector in between that medical and gameplay seesaw that's constantly going, right? This is constantly happening, medical versus gameplay, and having those things in between there that can affect the relationship between the two. I call them effectors because in the CG world, especially on a lot of the CG work I do, we have these things called effectors that can affect expressions and other stuff. So 90 says CIG showed us passive skills. Yeah, that's right. They did. That was like in a post-Citizen Con thing, right? I really hope, by the way, you know how direct. Oh, I got two announcements. I got two big announcements I forgot to tell you about. But what I will say is, I really hope that even with our short Digital CitizenCon this year, we get a longer, off the cuff, Richard Tyrer, Chris Roberts talk with Jared, like they did that other time where it was like 2 hours. Real quick, two big announcements. I want to go over these. The first one, I'm planning something. I'm working on something. I need to get up with a few of you to help organize it. But I had an idea that I'm shocked is not really done right now in game. And I think it would be a great thing for STARJUMP to lead. And I'm working on that. More info on that real soon, but it's an in-game event. Okay, I'll tell you that. The next thing is I am going to do a STARJUMP Digital CitizenCon watch party. Okay, it's not going to be in person though. It's going to be a virtual CitizenCon watch party. Okay. I wanted to do an in-person one. I thought that would be really cool. There may be an actual little in-person one here locally in Columbus, Ohio, which is where I live, for those of you who live around here. But it'll still be digital, even if there's a small group of us here, but it'll be digital. We'll watch CitizenCon together as a group, and then there may be a few giveaways and stuff like that. I am working on it. I'm working on the social post for it now. I'll get that stuff out to you soon. There will be an RSVP, so you can RSVP and sign up for it. I'm going to see what some other groups are doing too, see if they want to join in up on that. But yeah, it'll be a virtual watch party through Zoom. I do have a enterprise Zoom account, so it can hold, I think, like 100 or 200 people. So I have a big Zoom account. We'll all pile in there. It'll be a lot of fun, and I'm going to grab a few people to sort of act as hosts and moderators for it. So VMXEO is going to reach out to you. I don't know if you're currently going to any sort of CitizenCon watch party or have anything planned, but if you don't, obviously I'd want you part of it. But yeah, we are planning something. I'm going to have that information out by Monday of next week. Okay, by Monday of next week. I'm already working on it. I'm already working on the social posts. Okay, continuing on. Severe injury, tier 1. These injuries escalate the effects of the previous injuries, obviously. Says here arms have the increased severity of existing impairments, adding the hurt locomotion effects. So this is additional animation and audible effects. And then inflicting arm lock, preventing you from being able to hold objects or weapons in your hand. So again, that removes you from combat. So important to note there. Guardian, hope you're doing well. Guardian says, for the in-game event, are there plans to set up in a way for allow for quite a few folks? Biggest challenge, usually a server standing up to the challenge, although they're going to be... Yeah, I'm working on that, Guardian. There's going to be a few things to allow for that, and I hope I'm not vastly underestimating the amount of people that would want to come. But I'm going to actually talk to the Atmo Esports guys who I've had conversations with before and get their advice on a few things. I don't know when this would occur. I'd love for it to happen around IAE, but I'm not 100% sure. It may need to happen in an off time where there's free flies and all that going on. But I am talking to I am going to talk to the Ammo Esports guys and get some advice from them on this. Not that I think it's going to be anywhere near as big as what they're doing, but just it's something. It's something. So again, across all these, you have all the previous effects with additional things that really kind of kill certain gameplay elements. So for example, with legs, those tier 1 injuries, you'll be forced into the prone state and have no ability to stand or crouch. That's a big effector. That's obviously going to affect movement as well. Torso, it's going to involve limping with audible grunts and pains. And head, you'll have all the existing with, again, hurt locomotion and audible grunts and pains. Now, the key thing with this is with tier 1 injuries is you need to be stabilized by on-site treatment from a medic with a med gun or whatever. That stabilization, again, just gets you up and gets you the ability to get to the tier 1 medical bed that may be on a ship or at an LZ, but gets you stabilized, and that may only bring you up to 50% health, 75% health, I forget. But then you need to get to that tier 1 level bed, which right now I think only exists on 2 ships, the Idris and the Apollos, the upcoming Apollos. Okay, giving you that additional bonus of the tier 1 bed. Okay. They talk about on-site treatments here. Again, that can be done with medical pens, multi-tools, and the Cure Life medical gun. What does everyone carry? I generally, and the Endeavor, yes, which is also not out. Thank you, Rusty. What does everyone think of the Cure Life medical, what does everyone think of these tools? Does anyone carry something specific? I almost always carry the Cure Life medical gun. I don't know why. Is the Karrakin 890 jump tier 1s? I thought they were tier 2s. I thought that had been changed. If they're tier 1s, that's great. I'll be honest with you, I sort of stopped following the medical bed tiers for a little bit there. Feather says Karrakin 890 jumper tier 2. Okay, there you go. Karma Kappa says the Galaxy Med module can have a tier 1. That is true. That's a great point. I also think, and I really hope CIG does this, I really do think that the Kraken, if you looked at the most recent monthly report, they do talk about the Kraken currently getting a little bit of reconcepting specifically to account for its medical suite. And I really hope the Kraken gets a tier 1 medical bed. Put aside the Drake thing for a minute, because I don't think that really makes any sense at this point. Why would you, as a manufacturer, build this giant 270 meter long aircraft carrier, but then you cheap out to put a tier 2 medical bed in there? It makes no sense. I personally hope any capital ship above a certain size, let me rephrase that. Any capital ship acting as a carrier for other ships and other personnel can have a tier 1 medical bed, even if it's just one. And the only reason I say a carrier for other ships and personnel is that CIG's definition of capital gets a little shaky sometimes. John Crew has called the Perseus a capital ship before, when it's very, very much a large ship. And by the way, that's just because CIG's dealing with 500 ships in their minds. They don't have time to think of every little detail of every little ship off the cuff. But I'm just saying that you do need some definitions in that, and I do think the Kraken needs a tier 1 medical bed. I would say the same with the Banu Merchantman, the Idris, obviously. I think the Javelin for sure. It's not just because the Kraken's the best ship ever designed. It's truly because I think any ship of a certain scale deserves at least one tier 1 medical bed. I think the Idris has one tier 1. So, there's also things related to drug stabilization and blood level. Now with stabilization, again, this is what we were talking about. This is with those tools above, the med pen, Cure Life gun, and all that, to stabilize people on site to get them to the medical beds for further heal. There's drug level, blood drug level. It says here, while stabilization is crucial and necessary, it does carry its risk, as all drugs will increase your blood drug level, your BDL. All right. Pioneer should as well, Rabbit. Yes, good point. Your BDL is tracked next to your health status on your helmet. Once this level reaches 50% of maximum, you enter an overdose state. This will affect your traversal speed, blur your vision, add weapon sway, and even cause you to pilot your ship or vehicle erratically. So again, these are drug effects. Okay. I personally, I don't know how you all feel about this. I hope they go further into this. And we see additional depth and nuance there. Because I think that blood drug level is something where they can really start to define medics and doctors in the game. You know what I mean? Really help give them a lot of nuance, because those people could then push or pull back some of those drug levels to affect the bodies in certain ways. And one thing I would say to that is, what if there is, for example, a drug, and I think we have a firefighter or a paramedic or something in the channel. What if there was a drug that could give someone a temporary enhancement to their awareness or vision. Think of, an upper, right? And maybe medics or doctors in a pirate gang would administer that drug to its players before they go and board a ship, right? I don't know, just kind of interesting. And then maybe there are negative effects to that, like as Guardian says, like maybe you get that temporary boost, but then there's a longer negative afterwards that you have to deal with, right? So it's sort of like an adrenaline thing. Yep, exactly. Combat coffee. Yes, exactly. I don't know. I hope CIG adds into the game, adds into medical, that it's not just always about getting you back up when you're down, but allow you to manipulate that performance of an actor or, a player or an NPC, allow you to manipulate that. Nugu just subscribed for 4 months in a row. Nugu, thank you very much for that. Salute to you. I appreciate it. Scorpion King, you said it, not me. Scorpio King. But I see that, and the same could be said for cybernetics and other things, right? I think there could be something really interesting there. And then they kind of go into using the Cure Life medical tool again as a stabilization option. I use it pretty regularly. That's like my go-to. Again, for 6 different types of drugs that you can currently use in the game. You can read those here on this design brief. They do talk a little bit about the incapacitation and rescue beacons. This is one of those situations where you get hurt really bad. You are down and out. You got to put out your beacon. You got to be rescued. I know these are still broken, but once you do put them out, people can access their they'll get a notification, but they can access their contracts manager and accept that beacon, and then it essentially becomes like a mission for them. Now, I'll be the first to tell you all, I have said this many times, including my Star System 1.0 stream, that and this is not a criticism of CIG. They've actually stated they are working on this, but beacons in general need to be completely just like blown out to the nth degree. Not only, and I think they will, but we need our beacons to tie into everything. We need to tie them into personal reputation, make them org specific. Dr. Drones just followed. Thank you very much, Dr. Drones. You just sent the javelin overhead. But we need the beacons to be tailored a lot more than they are now. I think that would be really cool. So I don't think beacons are working right now, so stay tuned for that. They then go into medical beds. Now, this is what we were sort of all talking about in chat. Hudson Hawks' question, why the battleship Perseus doesn't have any kind of medical bed? Well, it does. Let's see where the concept goes, or where the ship is made. It's very possible CIG has added a tier 3 or tier 2 medical bed to it. If I had to guess, I could see it having a tier 2 medical bed. I think that would be appropriate for a combat brawler like the Perseus. But it's still a pretty small ship. It's only 100 meters long. A lot of people think it's bigger, but it's smaller. It's 25 meters shorter than... It's an entire Gladius shorter than a Carrack. So it's a smaller ship, but I think tier 3 definitely, and hopefully tier 2. I think there's space in there as well, so I personally hope the Perseus got one. Does actually, chat, remind me, does the since we're talking about medical beds here, does the Hammerhead have a medical suite? I forget. I haven't been inside a Hammerhead in forever. Maybe chat can remind me. It does not. See, I think that's a mistake. The Hammerhead and the Perseus, in my opinion, for their role, should both have, at the very least, a tier 3 medical bed, if not tier 2. Specifically because they are larger ships that have a crew that go into direct combat. Guardian says nope, but she's getting a glow up. That's true. They are doing a gold pass on the Hammerhead. I do think a medical suite would be a pretty significant change to the Hammerhead. But let's hope. That'd be a great question for John Crew. Like what his, not specifically on the Hammerhead, but it would be interesting to see what John's opinion is on what that threshold is for a ship to get a medical bed, whether that's tier 2, tier 3, whatever. Dr. Whitelake says, StarJump Graham, any ship with a crew size of 6 or more needs to have a medical bed at a minimum of tier 3. I don't disagree with that at all. I think 5 to 6 would be a good sort of, a good threshold to meet. Let's say 6, to be a good threshold to meet to get that medical bed. Jaybird says med bay for all exploration ships. I 100% agree. As a matter of fact, I don't think a ship is truly an exploration ship unless it has a medical bay. All right. You can kind of see examples of that here. I'm going to pop up an image real quick here. This here is the Apollo's medical rooms. You can see up top here, this is our tier 3. Sorry for the low quality of these. How many of you own the Apollo? Oh, by the way, real quick, before we go into this, do you all remember me talking about doing a giveaway for a Kruger Wolf? Does everyone remember that? Yeah? Okay. Some of you may remember that. I've decided to not do it. I went ahead and melted it actually and used the credit for something else. But that is because I have decided to do an Apollo giveaway. Okay, I'm going to do an Apollo giveaway. More on that soon. I don't know which version. It might be the cheaper version. Sorry, it might be the triage. But one cool thing about that, and I'll do that giveaway when the Apollos come out, but one cool thing about that, and that giveaway, by the way, will just be when you're watching the show, you're going to be able to, get a free ticket for it, and I'll do the drawing around the show. But what I will say is when you have an Apollo, you're going to get all 6 modules, okay? And what are those 6 modules? Well, the 6 modules are 2 tier 3 models, a left and a right. Action Bronson, thank you for that follow, sending the javelin overhead. EK Tello, thank you for that follow as well, also sending the javelin overhead. The followers are really coming in, everyone. I really, really appreciate it. The support has been fantastic. I love you all. I seriously do. Not the cheaper one, it's the faster one. Well, that's true, Bingo. That is true. Bingo, I hope you have a triage. Please tell me you do. So you will get 2 of these tier 3 modules, a left and right. You'll get 2 of these tier 2 modules, a left and a right. And you'll get 2 of the tier 1 modules, a left and a right. Dear Sid, thank you for the follow. Salute to you. Boom and boom. I appreciate all those follows, everyone. Appreciate it. Please share the channel with your friends. So there's our modules, but I wanted to take a look at something. So here's the tier 3 module for the Apollo. So Rec, I did. We're gonna go through those here in just a minute. They're great changes. Tier 3, you're getting the tier 3 medical beds. You get 3 of them per side. Okay. These are really nice. I like the design here that they've done with them. I love the big numbers on the bed, so you can assign, doctors or something to work certain beds. I love that attention to detail. I love the interior of this. Please, 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 CIG, if you're watching, do this pass on the Polaris. The Polaris is too amazing of a ship not to get a medical room that looks as decent as this. I don't criticize for how some of the Polaris interior decals came out. I think you guys were rushed, but you did such a fantastic job on the Polaris as a ship in general that its medical bay deserves this attention. So I really hope that happens. So this is one side of the Apollo Medical Suite. Now remember, if you do 2 Tier 3 modules, you'll have this on one side, this on the other side. Now, the Tier 2 is my favorite, and here's why it's my favorite. Socially Confused says the Polaris Med Bay killed that ship for me. Don't worry, Socially Confused. I have heard, and they have said it publicly, but I have also heard that the Polaris is going to get an interior glow up on a few areas. I don't think it'll be massively different, but it's going to get a glow up. So there's still hope. There's still hope, my friend. Yeah, the Apollo is going to be a pretty sizable ship. Armada says with the Apollo's rumored size to almost be 63 meters or so. Yeah, it does look like it's grown for sure. It'd be great if it grew a little bit. I'm pretty excited about that because at its old size, it sat in a really weird place with the Cutlass Red. It was like, yeah, it was kind of strange. But Tier 2 is my favorite, and the reason it is my favorite is because I love this center sort of doctor area because I do think doctor gameplay is going to be really big in the future. I think it's going to be engineering, but for the players, right? Because I think we're going to be able to tune things. There's going to be cybernetics, all kinds of stuff. So I like they had the little workstation. I like the Tier 2 medical beds. I love Tier 2 med bay. I think they did a fantastic job on that. Again, I wish they would have brought these numbers here into this as well. 1 and 2 or A and B, something like that. TJX says, question, should the Connies take the Apollo design language? I think in a rework, there should be a lot of the Apollo and the Zeus that comes into the Connie series. I don't think it needs to be exactly those ship or like be totally rethought, but I think a few things can be pulled from there. I don't think they're going to just totally change the Connies though in like huge ways. I think there's a lot of nostalgia there, but I think there's a lot that could be pulled. And then obviously Tier 1, which is really cool. I love the center thing. I do wish and hope CIG would have put a little medical workstation over here on one of the sides. Maybe they have. Maybe we're just not seeing all of it. But I feel like that's why Tier 2 is so great, is because it feels fully, it feels like there's a place for the doctor itself. I would like a smaller version of this medical work area like over here on the side. It doesn't look like they've done that, but I wish it did. I wish it did. So again, when you get the Apollo, you're going to get all 6 of these modules. You get 2 of the Tier 1s, 2 of the Tier 2s, and 2 of the Tier 3s. Okay? By the way, I think that was really great that CIG did that, where they gave you all 6 modules. Guardian says, I will lose it when they rework the Connies. Will unfortunately probably come with price increase. Yeah, probably. So there's our Tier 3 med beds. Again, we went over why those tiers are important. And they were specifically related to the tier of injury you get. So if you get a Tier 1 injury, the only way to get fully healed is to be in a Tier 1 bed. To get a Tier 2 injury, you need a Tier 2 bed. The beds under that can stabilize you, but they can't heal you fully up. Let's talk about MedGel, the big new one. And I did actually, let me go into something real quick. I did go into the PTU just last night and tried out some stuff. Do I have, bear with me. Yeah, went into there and got on the, I believe I'm on the Polaris here. Again, CIG, please give us something in here. It needs a little something. And I bought myself some MedGel dispensers and inserted them into the things. I was a little confused because it does look like they have 2 dispensers, but you could only ever put 1 in there, which I thought was strange. I'm not sure what you all thought about that, but I did get in there. It was really cool. I love the interactions. I love sliding it in. Again, CIG showing us some of that stuff coming over from Squadron 42, where you have those physical sort of interactions. The Rusty Pigeon Gaming says, Dr. Graham, well, I'll tell you this, Rusty, if they really truly make medical gameplay the engineering of characters, like it's engineering gameplay, but for characters, then I honestly would probably become a full-time doctor, or I would do doctor gameplay in the verse. I could see flying around Apollo with a couple other people, just answering people's calls. Hudson Hawk says, StarJump, can you ask CIG to add a medical bed to the Perseus? Well, I could. I don't know if anyone would listen, but more importantly, I think the interior's pretty done on the Perseus at this point. But here's the good news. Here's the good news, Hudson, is that I think we're going to find out real soon. And if I had to guess, the Perseus got a tier 3 bed. Maybe. But if they do, then definitely the Hammerhead needs to. That's the only reason I could see CIG not giving the Perseus a tier 3 medical bed, is because then they would have to go, well, we need to give it to the Hammerhead as well. And then, you know what I mean? But I do think it needs one. Okay, so MedGel is the substance at the core of medical gameplay. It fuels nearly everything from the limited healing capabilities of the multi-tool to the medical beds that bring people back to life. It is recommended to keep smaller ones on your person and larger supplies in storage of your medical bed equipped vehicle at all times. What does that mean? That means if you're arming up for battle, it's probably good to have one of these med gel dispensers in your backpack and then loaded into the ship's medical consoles, but then also inside ship storage. There should be a few of these as well. 100%. Hell, on certain people, you may demand they have a med gel dispenser when they come on board your ship, and then they put it in storage on the ship, and that's kind of their contribution to the medical gameplay. Yeah, these values here are inaccurate. We are going to go over the post, everyone. I do have the post here. We are going to talk about it. Don't worry. Says here, for medical beds, inserting a full-size canister via the port, okay, will reload the device, okay? You have to have a canister in there or it's not going to work, okay? Within some vehicles, ports are found on walls nearby the medical bed rather than the unit itself. And then on some medical beds, the port is on the bed itself. So for example, on the Idris, I can confirm that the medical gel repository is on the bed itself. It's on the side. Each tier of medical bed has a different med gel capacity. Again, we're going to ignore that for a minute because they have changed that. This is what they look like, though. They are about the size of like a shoebox or something in game. You can see here a little animation of those things opening, the med gel dispensers going in, and then closing. Now, many of you probably saw the other day, what was it? Let me find it real quick here. Some of you probably remember this image here from the other day, and this is something we're waiting to hear back from, but what I'm hoping is that we can take empty dispensers that we've already paid full price for, let's say 100,000 AUEC or however much they are. I'm hoping we can take those empty dispensers, take them to a refill or recharge station at a landing zone and recharge them. And when we do, that costs maybe half of what a brand new one costs. What do you all think about that? That recharge lowering the price of getting one, being a lower price than buying one outright brand new. I'm not sure what you all think about that, but I think that would be really cool. Right. But don't forget this image. Now, I don't think these are on ships. I think these are at landing zones, at hospitals. But I could see you going into the hospital. You've got 5 or 6 of those med gel things in your backpack. By the way, I think in I forget which backpack it was. I think it was in that new industrial backpack. Every med gel dispenser took up 5% of capacity. So you could technically carry, what was it? 10 of them, I believe, right? Why can't I add today? 20. You could carry 20 in a backpack, but you carry them in, you send them into the hospital of a landing zone. You go recharge all your med gel dispenser cartridges, whatever, and then take them back to your hangar. Hopefully there's a service for that in the future. Again, we're not going to cover this because a lot of these numbers have changed, so we're going to get to that. They do talk about the Apollo medevac and the Apollo triage. Here says here, for over 2 centuries, the Apollo chassis has been the industry standard for rapid response and medevac operations. This classic RSI styling and modular room system that allows for custom medical bed configurations. The Apollo are the most versatile option for first responders and medical support staff around. So here's one thing I'll say. For those of you in the game that want to do medical gameplay, that is your thing. You want to be a doctor in this game. Whether you're doing medical missions, whether you're serving a larger org, whether you're just cruising the verse, looking for opportunities to help people. Out of all the medical ships, and I don't really tell people what ships to buy, but out of all the medical ships, this is the one to buy. The Apollo, whether it's triage or medevac. This to me is like the gold standard ship for medical gameplay. All the other medical ships kind of play a role in that at different scales, but the one true focused medical ship is the Apollo. And if that's the gameplay loop you are diehard focused on, that is probably a ship you need to work to get in some way, whether real money, buying in game, however you're going to do it. I would tell you the same if you were big into base building. I would say, okay, you need to look at the CSVFM. You need to look at the Starlancer build. You need to look at the Pioneer, right? If you're salvage, you need to look at the Vulture. There's some ships where if that's the gameplay you're looking at, you kind of need to look at the important ships in that role. And the Apollo is going to be important there. And Maximus brings up a great point, actually. And so does Armada, the Prisoner. There are other medical ships that are bigger that are coming. The Galaxy, the Endeavor Hope, the Idris has a tier 1 medical bed. But what I'm specifically talking here are those day-to-day medical operations. The Apollo is going to hit a sweet spot from a cost standpoint, an upkeep standpoint, and what I guess I would call medical throughput standpoint. Right? Another interesting point, think about this with an Apollo. An Apollo, it won't, if it's grown to 60-something meters, it ain't fitting in the back of no Idris. But an Apollo will probably be able to land on the deck of a Kraken. So a Kraken could serve as maybe a mobile hospital. By the way, I've said this again 1,000 times. Put the Endeavor Hope aside for a minute. I 100% think the best ship from a design standpoint for a future hospital variant is the Drake Kraken. With its landing pad there, medical ships could land. There's elevators right on the deck that take the patient directly into the massive hospital store, area. It really is the best ship design for medical gameplay, in my opinion, as like a hospital ship. Distroy says Galaxy is not a dedicated medical ship. No, it has a medical module, and that medical module is pretty extensive and does have a tier 1 option. Socially Confused says I joined this game for medical. Yeah, I think, for example, you're definitely not going wrong with Galaxy and Endeavor Hope. Don't get me wrong. But what I'm just saying is that I think the Apollo is going to be a great day-to-day medical ship. Even more so than the C8R, even more so than the Cuddy Red, any of that type of stuff. The Apollo is really going to be the backbone of medical gameplay. Now, doesn't mean those other ships won't be. They will be at scale. At that 115 or meter or 125 meter, however long the Galaxy is, at that scale of ship, the Galaxy makes a lot of sense. Remember, it's going to be able to carry a C8R in there as well. At the capital level, the Endeavor Hope, the Kraken, the Idris are going to make fine medical ships. Think about this. The Idris, you can land C8Rs inside of it. Take your patients right up to medical. So there's plenty of benefits there. Just on that day-to-day, the Apollo is going to be really great. There's other ships, obviously, that play into this role. Anvil Terrapin, Medevac. My only issue with the Anvil Terrapin is I do think it should have received 2 medical beds inside of it for its cost. To me, it is too expensive to just have the one medical bed. So that is a criticism of this ship. I had got this ship with credit to check it out when it came out, quickly melted it. I actually love the ship, and I'm not a big Terrapin fan. I know VMXEO is gonna not like hearing that. I am not a big Terrapin fan. I don't really like the design of the ship, but there was something about the medical version. I was like, this is kind of cool, and I got it. But I'm sorry, that one medical bed, the cost just does not work out for me. But it is a valid medical ship. Drake Cutlass Red. Again, I think the Cuddy Red is a good ship for its cost option, but not the best. This is a great medical ship, the Anvil Pisces C8R. Great little runner. It can fit in a lot of other ships, which is key. It can easily fit in the Idris, can fit in the Carrack, will fit in a lot of those type of ships. We'll be able to synergize really well with the Galaxy medical variant. So this is an easy buy, especially if you own a Galaxy with the medical module. This would be a good add-on if you're thinking about serious medical gameplay. And then obviously the Ursa Medevac, and more to come. And we're probably going to get more medical ships too. They go into medicals and clinics and hospitals. You all know how they work. They're the top tier. They also have Life and Death again beyond 4.3. This is another article that they posted. Essentially what they talk about here, though, is they just talk about what the gameplay loop is going to be like for medical, right? So here, health, healing, health, and injuries. So this isn't death. This is just healing, right? It says player is injured and goes to medical bed. So right here. The next question that is asked there is, does medbed have conditions? So what tiers your injury versus what tiers the medical bed? Does the medical bed have med gel in it? All that stuff. If it does, then boom. Does player meet or need medbed, or does player and or medbed meet the conditions? Okay, so that goes into that tier 2 to tier 2 injury to medbed correlation. If yes, then boom, it heals the players. Injuries are healed relative to the medbed's tier. If no, does not heal the player. Going all the way back here, does medbed have conditions? No. Then it moves over here to heal the or to if it's no, then it will check to see. I think it just goes all the way down actually. So does medbed have conditions? So if the medbed has no conditions, then it will just automatically heal the player and you're good. That's probably technically landing zone beds. Now for regeneration, if a player is incapacitated or dead, it says here is shown regeneration UI and prompted to pick a location. So once you're put into bed, you're shown that regeneration AI or UI. Is regeneration valid? Location valid based on conditions. If it is, you'll be transitioned to a loading screen and regenerate. Okay. If no, then you can't regenerate and you have to pick another location. So it's going to be based off where you have your imprints. Now, I think your imprint will, when you choose your starting location, that is always, I think, where the sort of the baseline default fallback regeneration imprint is stored. Okay. And then obviously you can move that. You can move that to another landing area, a space station, a ship, etc. So really helpful that they posted this. They did say that they want to add the ability to imprint on multiple beds at once, which again goes into that thing of being able to choose your location, which will be really nice, right? So you'll probably be able to have your imprint stored at multiple locations. Adding the ability to choose which imprinted medical bed you wish to generate at, again. Adding new conditions which may limit regeneration, such as cooldown timers or regeneration limits before re-registration of an imprint is required. So in that situation, I could see a world where you perhaps you're building a base, but let's say you don't have a lot of money or credits at the beginning and you get a low tier medical bed, but that medical bed has a cooldown after every regeneration. Maybe it's a 30-minute cooldown or whatever. And then you are not able to regenerate there for 30 minutes. Or maybe the bed itself is not able to regenerate for 30 minutes. T-Jack has a question over on YouTube. What do you think an alien medical ship would look like? Bacta tanks, nest pools for the Tavaran, an enclosed shell-like bed for the Xi'an. Should they be unique? I think they should be unique, but serve the same function. I think we heard in the Merchantman it was some sort of like pool of gel that you lay in. Think like a little hot tub of gel. I think they could still do that. And it could still have the med gel dispensers and stuff in there that just regenerate the med gel that you're laying in. They could play into that. I do think they should be different. I think there should be a little bit of uniqueness there. When you're in a giant alien ship, it should be different and unique. You know, when people get on your ship and they've never been on a ship like that, it should feel different and alien and wild. You know, Von Cody says there should be tentacles involved. There probably should be invasive tentacles. They give an example here of what that multiple imprints at once could look like. Again, for example, maybe you have have it on a landing zone, a ship and vehicle, your home base. So this would be your base, and then temporary, which is the most interesting one here because it's the one I didn't think about. But that is something I would love for CIG to do from a gameplay perspective, only because I think it would help new players and lessen some of the friction on in-game events. So, for example, if you have a special event going on, let me give you an example. Let's say you have Xenothreat going on, right? Let's say Xenothreat is going on. It would be nice if you die and you need to regenerate. It would give you the option between, let's say, your home base, your home landing zone, right? So let's say Crusader, Olisar. But then also, because you were fighting in Xenothreat, it will automatically assign you an option to regenerate at Jericho Station, right? Because it's over there, without you having to go there and set your imprint. Gono Microwave, hopefully I said that right. Thank you for the follow very much. Appreciate it. Sending the javelin overhead. Follower count is continuing to climb, everyone. I do appreciate that. We're now at 5,176 followers. We're doing incredible. So I think those kind of temporary things would be really nice. That you don't have to go set the imprint yourself. It just knows, right? It just knows you were in that area, right? So, and maybe there's a fee associated with that. So let's say you die over in, let's say your home base is in New Babbage, but you die doing a mission over in Crusader. What would be nice is when it gives you the ability to regenerate back at your home base in New Babbage, that it would also give you the ability to res at Crusader, but with a fee. And that fee is the cost of Microtech Hospital transferring your imprint to the Crusader Hospital. You know what I mean? So there'd be a stiff cost associated with it, but the option would be there. I do personally think that is needed. Okay. Now, another thing would be cool is if medical ships are flying around, you know, they could activate a beacon or some sort of setting that allows them to be an option for regeneration for players in that area, in that shard or in that region of space. You know what I mean? So if I'm operating an Endeavor Hope hospital ship, I would want to be able to put out a beacon while I'm on and operating that allows players, if they've died in and around maybe the planet I'm operating in or that entire system, to possibly choose to res on my ship. And there could be you know, stuff there. For example, maybe the beacon I put out, you can only res on my ship if you have a really good personal rating, right? 5 stars and up or 4 stars and up, right? There could be metrics there. Now, Von Cody says, Disagree. Game like this should reward your pre-planning in significant ways. This include there sometimes not being that option to regenerate in an area that you didn't prep. Yeah, that is a solid, valid point. There's a lot of nuance to this, and to me, it's about friction, right? And it is a. You're talking to someone, by the way, who's played Arma 3, heavily modded, military simulation style, milsim style Arma 3 for over a decade. Okay, ran a unit, did a lot of complex missions, a lot of logistical prep. The biggest problem we had in Arma 3 was the significant overhead to getting into the game, learning the insanely detailed mods, dealing with the insanely detailed mission prep and logistics loadout phases, and then executing the mission was the easiest part, by the way. The others were the hardest. In our milsim unit, we had entire training classes that would teach you just how to use the radio, how to operate medical. I mean, and all of our members had to take those training classes because that's how detailed it was. That friction made it so difficult to get new quality players, right? Because that ceiling was just there from the get. Yep, Mark 84 says it right there, dealing with the ACE medical system. For those of you who play Arma 3 or Arma 2 or 3, you will know the ACE medical system stands for Advanced Combat Environment, I believe. Advanced Combat Experience, Advanced Combat Environment, I can't remember. But what I'm saying there is that friction did create a problem. It made it so difficult to get good players into the game because it was such a high bar. Now, the tricky thing with that is that high bar is why a lot of people want to play the game. So it's a balance. You have to make it somewhere in the middle where people don't get so frustrated they don't play the game, but that it's so complicated, unique, and logistics heavy that it's appealing, right? Pipes, thank you for the follow. Appreciate it. Salute to you, buddy. Thank you very much. So, was it Sorek that posted that? I forget. Or maybe it was socially. I can forget who had the counter, but it is a good point. But it is a balance. It is a balance. Ken P says maybe it's something for just hospital type ships like the Endeavor, Hope, Apollo, Galaxy. I would agree with that. Maybe that is a unique thing to those ships. You know what I mean? They talk about med bed conditions, manual med gels, automated med gels. What is this one? The med bed requires med gel to function, but will automatically restock at a set rate. No one can manually restock the unit. So I think these are going to be beds at landing zones. The manual med gel will be the ones in our ships. Again, look at all the stuff they're looking into. So temporary imprints, regeneration timers, the ability to delete an imprint, which is kind of interesting, right? Be able to delete an imprint from a bed. And then a lot of other things, disabled by soft death, disabled by distortion. Again, if a ship gets hit in soft death mode, you're not going to be able to imprint, right? So a lot of that kind of stuff. There's system UEC fees, taxes on that, player-defined UEC fees. So, for example, you have your own medical bed at a player-defined base, or if you're operating a medical bed on an Apollo or a Galaxy or an Endeavor, you might be able to set a regeneration fee yourself, right? This would be a great way to get some economy flowing, some money sinks working in the game. I think this is fantastic. You know what I mean? Player-defined fees, I think would be really great. So really interesting. obviously all this isn't in yet, but this shows where they are going with medical in 4.3.1 and beyond. So I think personally, if you are going into the medical gameplay loop in this game, you should be pretty excited because CIG does look like they're thinking about this a lot. I would like to hear more about cybernetics from them, by the way. We haven't heard about that for a while. Fine. Cody says, I agree to a point. I'm not encouraging to make things full sim and difficult for no reason. I'm simply stating that if you didn't make the simplest of plans that you got killed 3 systems. Yeah. I mean, yeah, I see what you're saying here. So, I mean, again, Star Citizen should be a game about planning. I 100% agree with you there. I do feel CIG doesn't make that easy sometimes, though. For example, and just at least for now. For example, there's no real reason to spend the time and effort to logistically outfit your big ships with supplies and all that stuff because your uptime in the game is so small right now for the average player that all that setup doesn't matter. So again, there's a lot of stuff when it comes to pre-planning I hope CIG fixes in the future. Being able to create cargo manifests, supply orders that you can have delivered directly to your hangar. So I should be able to order an entire case of water, an entire case of food to be delivered, all that kind of stuff. CIG needs to actually do a focus once full on persistence is in game, because it's not yet. Then we need to get CIG needs to do a pass on logistics and supply preparation for ships, 100%. Sean Solis's question, now that MedGel exists, how would you feel about adjusting how bed tiers work? All beds can heal all tiers, but the gel cost goes up. Tier 3 bed heals Tier 1 injury, significantly greater cost. I thought about that. I think the way CIG's looking into that is more around power and cost. So I don't think they want to do that. I would be open to it. I will say that I'm getting warmer and warmer on where they're heading with medical now. The last time I talked to STARJUMP Ender, of course, I think we were having, event fest on how disappointed we were with some of the decisions CIG was making on medical. But I got to be honest with you, with a lot of their stuff now, I'm getting more into it. A lot of the changes sort of making, again, it's all because they're bringing nuance and differences to the different tier medical beds. So to me now, having a tier 1 bed does feel like a significant advantage over existing game. Or sorry, I can't talk here. Tier 1 is a significant advantage over tier 2 in my opinion at this point. Real quick, everyone, we're going to take a quick pause. We just got some news. Thank you for letting me know, Hudson Hawk. CitizenCon Direct, 32 days away. Again, you're going to be getting the information about this very soon. There is a digital CitizenCon's goodie pack. We're going to look at what that is here in just a second. There is a way to be part of the show by doing your own machinima. I was thinking about entering this. I don't know. There's going to be a couple of events that CIG will be going to, so that's exciting. Any near me? Nope, none near me. That's sad. Let's take a look at the digital CitizenCon goodies pack. All right, so is there seriously only one image here? Okay, so new armor set number 1, new armor set number 2, new undersuit, new flight suit with helmet, new jacket. It's a lot of gear. 3 FPS weapons, a challenge coin, a trophy, and 3 new decor items. So quite a bit. Obviously, we don't have all that now. We see some boxes back here that's supposedly hiding the gear and guns. I'll be honest with you, if this is the flight suit, I really like it, and I love this helmet. It looks like a Kraken deckhand aircraft carrier worker suit. I kind of dig that. That's pretty awesome. $35 though. Watch out. Watch out. There we go. But coming very soon, again, STARJUMP will be having a digital CitizenCon Direct virtual watch party. I will post that information in our Discord, and I'll post it on the Twitter and probably post it on the YouTube. There'll be an RSVP to sign up by a certain date. There'll be limited slots. Hope you can join if those of you are wanting for a digital CitizenCon virtual experience. What we'll probably do is it will be for the 2 hours of CitizenCon, but then we'll also probably be for about an hour before that and an hour after that. So probably be a 4-hour thing, okay? Okay, let's go back to this. They do talk a little bit about medbed permissions. Again, this is interesting here. It says if a medical bed is within your ship, vehicle, or base, then you may set permissions limiting who can use it to heal or imprint independently. So maybe just you, maybe just everyone, maybe just your friends, party members, or org members. Totally agree with all this. One thing I wish CIG would possibly consider is a different type of party that is, and maybe they call that crew. Destroy, that's great to hear. Glad to see you. I'd be glad to see you there. Is a crew. A crew could be made up of a party. It could also be made up of people not in a party. But I would like a ship crew to be essentially a party that's only defined while in the ship. And you can sign up for crew positions. Those crew positions have assignments within the ship and permissions in the ship. So if you're assigned a ship medic, then you have additional medical permissions on board the ship. If you're assigned the ship engineer, you have additional engineering permissions. So I think CIG is going to bring that permission stuff to the party system, but I would love it to be like a crew system, to be totally honest with you. They talk about some changes to the regeneration interface. Again, these are coming down the pipe. So, for example, you will still have game chat accessible, which I like. In Arma 3, it would turn off the chat when you couldn't chat anymore in Ace, at least the way we used it. That was problematic. It was more realistic, but problematic. Essentially you will be given regeneration location to choose from, right? So it could be the hospital name, vehicle name, base name, whatever, or a medical beacon, etc. So that's really nice to see. They too talk about rescue beacons. They have some work to do to get those fixed, but they are a priority for 1.0. But they talk about getting them set up for 600 player capacity, meshing, multiple star systems, and just all that kind of stuff. It is just interesting that they're thinking about that. I'm glad they're thinking about that. And again, now that they're going further with medical gameplay, let's hope that this gives them the momentum to continue iterate on medical gameplay, continue to bring it to more ships, flesh out the feature, and not let it just sit and die for the next 2 years. Destroy Grim, what about a fleet system to better recognize friendly ships versus enemies? Well, I think that will come with the new radar and scanning stuff, as well as the new tag system, the social system, where ships are going to have colored tags now for whether they're hostile, alliance-based ships, stuff like that. Is this Declan? Maybe Declan? I don't know. I could have the name wrong. Posted an update here. These are pretty big, actually. Pretty big, important changes. Let me scale up here. So they say here the amount of medgel contained within a single canister has been increased from 100 to 200, and this is important. Now, the canister cost is still 100,000 AUEC, but now there's 2 regions per canister. This is an incredible change. I'm glad they did it. This was a big complaint amongst the players and something that I was hoping they would address. Dr. White on Twitch says, question, when will the new model for the Apollo be updated on Fleet Viewer? It'll be updated when the new model comes into the game files. We will then pull it. VMXEO will work on it, and we'll get it into Fleet Viewer. Says, respawning still consumes 100 medgel. However, due to the canister change, this is now the equivalent of 50,000 AUEC. So a respawn now, you can get 2 per medgel canister, and that essentially lowers the cost of C Daddy CIG, hope you're well, buddy. Thanks for joining the chat and hanging out with us today. STARJUMP Grim, that is indeed Declan. Okay, cool. I thought it was. I couldn't remember what his Spectrum tag was, but okay. So this is straight from Declan, everybody. So this we're getting it straight from the developer here, working on this system probably. So respawning still consumes 100 medgel, however, due to the canister charge. So it's bringing the cost down to 50,000 AUEC. And this is an incredible change. In the past, we've seen before where things go out and people are salty about them. They don't love the way that a certain feature is just stated or whatever. But this is again another example, and there's been a few of these even just in the last 12 months where I think the developers that are working on these features are listening. They're watching that PTU, those Evo playtests, the PTU playtest. They're listening to that player feedback, and they're you know they're taking a step back and looking at what can they change to give us a little bit, but then still keep what they're going for. And I think this is another great change where they listen to people and they kept some of that stuff in there. So that 100,000 AUEC cost, which I think is actually kind of important. And the reason is because the cheaper you make the cost of the med gel, the more you mitigate the friction for dying, right? If that gets too low, then you've completely made the medical system irrelevant anyways because the cost of entry is too low, right? 100,000 AUC is, to me, now this is subjective. Some people may think it's nothing. Some people may think it's something. But to me, it's just enough that, like, you want to be a little careful. You know what I mean? 10 deaths suddenly costs you 500,000 credits. 20 deaths suddenly costs you 1,000,000 credits. There's a lot of players where that will have a big footprint, right? There's a lot of players where that have a big footprint, especially new players. We got to think about this in terms of new players sometimes, right? To a new player, 100,000 AUEC is not nothing. You know what I mean? To some of those of us running out with a reclaimer and can make 4 million credits in a couple hours or an hour or two or whatever, that is nothing. But you got to think of that new player friction. Don't worry. Us seasoned players, CIG is going to find ways to add in further friction for us and currency credit sinks for us that are outside of medical probably. You know what I mean? Here's the thing. The whole how much money we have right now doesn't really factor into anything I think about right now because we don't really have any sinks in the game right now other than ships. We will get them, I think, with base building, taxes, all that stuff, but we don't net. And when we do get those things, now let's start to see where the money and cost of things net out because suddenly, once we have a lot more upkeep costs, taxes, all that kind of stuff to pay for, well, suddenly that 100,000 AUEC may seem like a decent amount. We'll see. They say healing tiered injuries is now different medgel costs. So this is something everyone was hoping for. I knew this was coming. This wasn't like a big shocker to me. Rather than a flat amount. So before, if you healed an injury with the med bed, so not regenerate, but just healed, I think it would take 50%, right? I think it was 50%. Or no, I thought it was like 10 medgel or something. I can't remember. But anyway, it says here a tier 3 injury will consume 5 medgel. A tier 2 injury will be 10 medgel. Tier 1 injury will be 20 medgel. So a decent amount. I like these numbers. I don't know what you all think, but I kind of like where those numbers are currently sitting, at least for the first implementation. Again, looking at the tier 1 injury, 10,000 AUC, it's very small. But again, this is just an injury. But it's something. It's enough. Maybe it needs to be higher. Maybe tier 1 does need to be 20,000, but let's see where it sits at 10,000 and we'll adjust from there. I mean, what we're seeing here is that CIG is very well aware that these numbers are things. These are the knobs and switches that they're going to turn, right? Tier 3 medbags have had their capacity increased from 100 to 200, okay? Tier 2 have had their capacity increased from 200 to 400. So pretty much a doubling, right? Tier 1 meds have had their capacity increased from 400 to 600, so 50% increase. It says here we want the bed capacity to be divisible by the canister amount, which is the main driving force behind this change. However, we also recognize that for T3 beds, it's a nice quality of life update to be able to heal a few times and still have one respawn in reserve before having to top up again. I completely agree. It gives you a reason for wanting to carry a tier 3 module. Because before these changes, I was honestly wondering why you would ever take a tier 3 module when you have the tier 2 or tier 1s available. Now this makes sense. You get more respawns for the med gel you have. So for me, that's now interesting. You know what I mean? I think that's a great change. This is a great change. I like what they've done there. I like the thinking here. Declan, if you get this message, nice work on that one. It says respawn distance of tier 1 beds has increased from 150 million meters to now 750 billion meters. Am I reading that right? Enough to cover most star systems. That's a pretty huge change. Says the dev, maybe me, who gave the numbers to team putting together the website design brief referenced the wrong cell in Excel when doing an AU to meters conversion, and this is now fixing it. So that now gives a huge reason to want a tier 1 bed. So again, see what they're doing? They're bringing in differences between tier 3, tier 2, tier 1, make all of them desirable, but in different ways. Tier 1, you get the tier 1 injury support, but also distance. Tier 3, you get to tier 3 industry support, but you now get more respawns available to you. I really like that. I like that nuance there. Says medical canisters will be added to long-term persistence. Again, this is something people were hoping for. I kind of thought this was going to come, and it's glad to see it is there. Scott Gus says most star systems, there's literally only 2. True, but personally, I do think we're very, very close to Nyx. Okay. Stay tuned for CitizenCon Direct. I think we're going to get a Nyx announcement. And by announcement, I don't mean it's coming into the game next month. I just mean announcement and that it's going to come to PTU very soon to be tested. There's been parts of Nyx and Levski, the new Nyx and Levski, in the game files for the last few months. So there's obviously stuff happening. Okay. Castro, we know, is in production. CIG talked about a new planet being made with Planet Tech V5 features. I think that's probably a planet in Castra, if I had to guess. Castra probably seems like it's a good test bed for Planet Tech V5, that Genesis stuff. And I believe Terra, they have said, is in pre-production. So probably doing some concept work for it. Just some early stuff. Essential asset. I'm going to post this link here in chat for you all in case you all want to reference it yourself. There it is. See, this is why I need to get a team of moderators to help me do this stuff. For those of you that follow Mr. Kraken, make sure you go to follow Mr. Kraken on Twitter if you haven't, or X. He puts out these great charts that CIG has referenced a few times. He does a great job on them. He did just post on Twitter that he is going to update this chart with the new details here. So keep an eye on his channel. This is the old one, so the stuff is wrong. You can see the distances here are wrong, the regen range. But he is going to update these. These are super helpful, by the way, is like quick reference cards. For example, if you're running an org and you have someone who's joining the org who wants to be a medic, these quick reference cards are really great to send these people for them to sort of start to get up to speed, in addition to the design briefs and for medical gameplay and actor status and stuff. New Apollo is looking great, by the way. I was going to go and look. Let's do medical. We're going to put some ships down here, but we're also going to add a few others. We're going to add the Endeavor Hope. We're going to get the Galaxy. And we're going to do the Idris. P, and we'll do the Carrick. Okay, and oops, unlock. Let's auto layout these. So we kind of have an interesting. I wanted to look at while I had you all here. I just kind of wanted to look at what we're looking at for ship medical ships right now. So we have the Ursa Medevac, we have the C8R Pisces, we have the Terrapin Medical, and then we have the Cuddy Red. Those are kind of operating all at one tier to me. Then we have the Apollo series of ships, which sort of act as the middle tier. And Dex, this is STARJUMP Fleet Viewer. It is a website that I, along with BMXEO, there it is. It just popped up in the stream elements. STARJUMP Fleet Viewer, this is the site that me and BMXEO and STARJUMP Starlet, another one of our members, created. You can import your own fleets into this by connecting it with your RSI hanger, and you can do all kinds of great stuff. It's a really cool website. Check it out. If this is the site you're talking about, Dex. Otherwise, it was this website, Spectrum. But anyway, so we have the Apollos operating sort of here. No, Raul, we'll update the Apollo measurements once we know how big this ship actually is. I don't go by, I think it was SC Leaks or Pipeline or whatever, put out an estimate of how long they think it is, but that's not accurate. I mean, it may be close to accurate, but until I know the actual length of it, then we won't update it until then. I can tell you right now, though, generally when a ship comes out, we either pull it from CIG's data or we actually measure the ship in 3D. Like in the 3D software, we'll measure the geometry. I actually trust our size measurements more than what the CIG transmission page sizes are, because we usually go down to the 0.5 meter range. Usually, not all the time, but usually. And then Galaxy and Carrick. Actually, no, I would put the Apollo and the Galaxy in this tier. I'd put the Carrick more up in this tier. When you're just looking at the medical ships as is, and this is just from medical support level, I think you're looking at something more like this. And then tier 1, and then probably tier 3 would be the Hope. So yeah, so the ships in this range here, let me just scale this one down so it's not crazy. The ships in here, I think, sort of operate in this level of medical throughput. These ships operate in like the lower tier level of threshold or throughput, medical throughput, meaning their ability to do medical at a certain level. And then obviously the Endeavor Hope, what we're thinking is that it's going to operate on a whole other level. I think it probably brings some additional gameplay. Yeah, Dex, you can use STARJUMP Fleet Viewer. It's a really cool website. Again, STARJUMPFleetViewer.com. When you go to it, you can go to Hanger Link, which will look at your hanger, which is really, really helpful. Or you can go to STARJUMP Fleet Viewer. They're kind of sister things. You can retrieve all your ships, which I've already done. And when you do retrieve all your ships from your account, it does require an extension to be in your browser. But if I go to Hanger Link, it has all the stuff I've ever purchased from my account. And then you can actually go to Fleet Viewer from there and add your Hanger Link ships, and that will populate all the ships in my hangar in my Fleet Viewer fleet. So I have them all here. One cool thing is you can look at them at multiple angles, so you can do top down, profile, forward, or isometric. Oh, Mood 235, thank you. The TAC and Polaris. I almost forgot about those. I can't believe I was in the Polaris last night doing medical, so I'm not sure why I forgot about that one. But the TAC as well. So the TAC and Polaris and the 600i, once it gets its rework, those are going to fit right in that middle or right in that top level, right? Because they deal with a sort of like tier 2 and under, or say tier 2, tier 3 medical. And then that next level, the higher level, would be the ships that support tier 1. So Idris, Apollo, Galaxy, right? Hopefully Kraken and Apollo, and then Endeavor. The Endeavor, though, may sit in a tier even above that because I think the Endeavor may bring some additional gameplay. We'll have to see, though. But yeah, it gives you the ability to look. You can click on a ship, move it around. You can select all. You can bump the type all up. You can do new layouts. You can change the color of type. You can go into your canvas settings. You can change the canvas to different backgrounds if you want. There's a lot you can do here. It's a really fun website. We put it together. It's been out for a few years now, but definitely check it out. StarJumpFleetViewer.com, VMXEO in chat, and StarJump Starlet or Starlet. Obviously critical in making that website function the way it does. So make sure you give them an 07. A lot of the really wonderful ship renders are courtesy of myself and VMXEO. So, you can zoom down, and it gives you one other ability here is when you zoom down, you can click on a ship, and there's 3 different resolutions you can view it at. So I think we're at SD right now, which if you look, there's a little pixelation kind of going on. It's a little soft just to make it run well. But if I click on that and click on HD, it'll reload it in like high definition. And see, now I can like zoom in and see all the details, right? And it's like that for every ship. So same thing like on the Javelin. If I come in here, you'll see it's kind of pixelated. That's just so the performance stays good. See how quick I can zoom in and out? But if I click on the Javelin and go to HD, it'll reload in high definition. Pretty cool. We do that for performance reasons, by the way. So I do hope and think that we'll get a behind the ships episode on the Apollo soon. Probably maybe next week. CIG will surprise us with that. I hope it's a little bit of a longer episode that focuses on the difference between the triage and between the medevac. Probably goes into medical a little bit. I do hope we get that next week. That would be really great. I do have an Apollo medevac. I am going to do a live on air sort of walk through the ship when it does hit the PTU, so stay tuned for that. I hope you all enjoyed this. Again, we got our CitizenCon digital CitizenCon goodies information, so that's really cool. Go check that on the website if you want, and stay tuned. I will probably the sign-ups for the StarJump virtual watch party. My goal is to get those sign-ups out by Friday. Okay, and all of you should find them. I'm going to put it on our Twitter X account. I'll put it on our Discord, and I'll put it on our YouTube community post channel. Okay, so you will be able to find it. There'll probably be about 100 slots available, so sign up if you want to. I'd love to have as many people show up as possible. Who knows? Maybe a CIG folk will stop by or what have you. C Daddy, you are always welcome to come hang out with us. Always love that C Daddy comes and hangs out and chat when we stream. Sometimes it's always great to have him clarify some of the things that we talk about in relationship to CIG and stuff like that. So that's really great. Appreciate you, C Daddy, always hanging out. Everyone, VMXEO in chat again, give him a giant salute. One of my partners in crime. We were just doing some save Stanton the other night and got VMXEO to tier 5 on Hurston. Got myself to tier 5 on Hurston, which is really great. Love the Hurston paint jobs, by the way. They're awesome. That being said, everyone, let's take a look here at who we can give a little bit of that love for. I hope you'll hang out. You know what? I know who we're going to give a little bit of love to. I met him at Quantum Vegas, which was a great event. He was backstage and hanging out when me and Sandy Roberts were back there talking. He came in, and he was an awesome dude. I really enjoyed meeting him. Hope to talk to him again longer at some point, but he's a really awesome dude. Please give him some StarJump love when you go over to his channel. I really appreciate it. I'm going to be sending you over to Red Monster SC. Everyone, it's been great talking today. Thursday night, we'll be doing a Q&A stream where we beta test Piggle's new question bot that'll allow me to pull questions. It's going to be a StarJump Ask Me Anything. Okay, we're just going to take questions on anything about the game. or about STARJUMP, all that kind of good stuff. All right, everybody, going to send you over there. Have a good time. Going to send you over to C Daddy, or sorry, send you over. I'm going to send you to C Daddy. I'm going to send you over Red Monster SC. Please give him some STARJUMP love. I really appreciate it, everyone. Love you. Thanks for showing up today. We had a great turnout. Please share the channel with your friends. Have a good day.